Hello there, and welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Tonight, we're drifting into the ancient world of Valyria, where dragons once filled crimson skies and towers of black stone reached toward the heavens. This was an empire that ruled for 5,000 years before vanishing in a single day of fire and ash. Let this be your moment to settle. The world outside can wait. We're exploring the grandeur of a lost civilization, the mystery of its sudden end, and the echoes that still ripple through the world of ice and fire. Some discoveries may surprise you. Others will simply drift by like smoke on ancient winds. If this helps you unwind, a like helps others find their way here too. But for now, let's begin. The Valyrian Freehold stood as the greatest civilization the known world had ever seen. An empire that dominated the continent of Essos for 5 millennia before its fall. At its height, Valyria controlled vast territories stretching from the Smoking Sea to the shores of Slaver's Bay, from the Summer Sea northward into the heartlands of Essos. The capital city itself rose on a peninsula warmed by volcanic heat, where summers lasted generations and winters passed like brief shadows. 40 noble families ruled this empire, each commanding dragons that could reduce armies to ash in moments. The power concentrated in Valyria was unmatched by any kingdom before or since, a concentration of wealth, magic, and military might that seemed eternal to those who lived beneath its shadow. The very stones of their buildings were fused with sorcery, creating architecture that defied the normal limits of construction. No force in the known world could challenge Valyrian supremacy, and for thousands of years, none dared try. The empire's dominance seemed as permanent as the mountains themselves, as unchangeable as the turning of seasons. The architecture of Valyria remains legendary even centuries after the city's destruction, spoken of in whispers by those who study the old ways. The Valyrians mastered techniques for working stone that combined both craft and magic, creating materials unlike anything produced before or since. Dragonstone, as it came to be called, was black as night and smooth as polished glass, harder than regular stone yet somehow shaped into impossible forms. Towers rose without visible seams, curving and twisting in ways that seemed to defy the laws of nature, their surfaces reflecting light like dark water. The greatest structures reached heights that made them visible from miles away, black fingers pointing accusingly at the sky. Even the roads built by Valyrian engineers surpassed anything created in later ages, fused from stone with such skill that they remain intact and passable to this day, thousands of years after the hands that made them turned to dust. These roads stretch across Essos like the bones of some great fallen creature, testament to an empire that thought itself immune to time's erosion. The technique for creating such roads died with Valyria, another secret lost to the flames. The 14 volcanoes that surrounded and defined Valyria were known as the 14 Flames, sources of both power and peril for the Freehold. These massive peaks dominated the landscape of the Valyrian Peninsula, their fires burning constantly beneath the earth, heating the land and making the region perpetually warm. The Valyrians, in their mastery of both magic and engineering, somehow learned to harness this volcanic power, drawing on the heat and forces beneath the mountains for their forges and their sorcery. Slaves by the thousands toiled in mines beneath these mountains, extracting precious metals and rare materials in conditions of terrible heat and danger. The relationship between the Valyrians and their 14 Flames was intimate and essential, the foundation upon which their entire civilization was built. Some historians believe the Valyrians possessed magical knowledge that allowed them to influence or control volcanic activity itself, though such claims remain speculation rather than verified fact. What is certain is that the 14 flames burned constantly throughout Valyria's long history, reliable as the sun's rising, their smoke visible across vast distances. The mountains that gave the Empire so much strength would in the end become the instruments of its absolute destruction. The Empire of Valyria was built fundamentally on the labor of enslaved peoples, countless thousands who worked without freedom or hope throughout the freehold's long history. The scale of Valyrian slavery exceeded even that practiced in later ages, with entire peoples subjugated and put to work in the mines, the fields, the great construction projects that defined the empire. The conditions endured by those who labored in the mines beneath the 14 flames were particularly harsh, as slaves were forced to work in intense heat and dangerous conditions extracting ores and precious materials. Many perished in cave-ins, volcanic gases, or simple exhaustion, their bodies left where they fell as new slaves took their places in the darkness. The Valyrians viewed this system as natural and necessary, the foundation upon which their magnificent civilization could flourish. Yet the cruelty of this arrangement left marks that would outlast the empire itself. Braavos, the secret city, was founded by slaves who escaped Valyrian bondage and built a new home in the northern lagoons where dragon lords feared to search. The memory of Valyrian slavery shaped the cultures that emerged after the Doom, with some cities continuing the practice while others, like Braavos, banned it absolutely. The suffering endured in those mines and fields can only be imagined across the long centuries since. Dragons were not merely weapons or symbols to the Valyrians, but fundamental to their identity as a people and a power. The origins of Valyrian dragons remain mysterious, lost in the depths of time before records were kept. Some Meisters theorize that the Valyrians discovered dragon eggs in the volcanic mountains and learned through long experimentation how to hatch and train them, while others suggest darker origins involving blood magic and ancient sorceries. What is known is that the Valyrians possessed dragons when they were still a minor people, and it was dragon power that allowed them to rise from obscurity to dominance. Each of the 40 noble families that ruled the freehold controlled multiple dragons, binding these creatures to their bloodlines through methods that have never been fully understood. The bond between dragon and rider was said to be mystical as well as practical, creating a connection that made the great beasts responsive to their master's commands. A Valyrian dragon lord seated on their mount was the most powerful individual warrior the world had ever seen, capable of devastating entire armies alone. The skies above Valyria were rarely empty, as dragons flew constantly between the territories of the freehold, their shadows passing over lands that had learned to fear and respect that darkness. This aerial supremacy, this absolute dominance of the skies, gave Valyria an advantage no enemy could counter. The art of forging Valyrian steel represents one of the greatest losses when the freehold fell, a technique combining metal and magic that has never been successfully recreated. Valyrian steel blades are lighter than normal steel, yet stronger, never losing their edge, capable of cutting through regular armor as if it were cloth. The metal itself has a distinctive appearance, marked by rippling patterns that seem to flow like water trapped in solid form, dark and beautiful. The exact process for creating Valyrian steel died with the smiths who knew it, though it certainly involved dragon fire and likely incorporated blood magic and arcane rituals. After the Doom, Valyrian steel weapons became treasures beyond price, passed down through noble houses and guarded jealously. In Westeros, only a few hundred Valyrian steel blades are known to exist, most of them swords owned by the great houses as symbols of their ancient lineage. The value of even a simple Valyrian steel dagger exceeds the cost of a castle, and a sword can purchase a small kingdom. Smiths in later ages learned to rework existing Valyrian steel, reforging old blades into new shapes, but none have discovered how to create new Valyrian steel from raw materials. The secret remains locked in the ashes of the Freehold, another piece of knowledge that burned. Magic in Valyria was not the fading, uncertain thing it became in later ages, but a practical tool integrated into daily life and governance. The Valyrians practiced blood magic openly, arts that later cultures would consider dark and forbidden, using these powers to control dragons, shape stone, and maintain their empire. Sorcerers and shadowbinders held significant positions in Valyrian society, their knowledge respected and utilized for the benefit of the Freehold. The exact nature of Valyrian spells and rituals remains largely unknown, as most texts describing such practices were destroyed in the Doom or lost in the chaos that followed. What fragments remain suggest that Valyrian magic often required sacrifice, the offering of life force to achieve desired effects, explaining later cultures' distrust of such arts. The connection between Valyrian magic and their dragons seems to have been particularly strong, with sorcery apparently playing a role in binding dragons to specific bloodlines and controlling these powerful creatures. Some scholars believe that Valyrian magic also allowed the Dragon Lords to influence or manage the volcanic forces of the 14 Flames themselves, though such claims venture into speculation. What is certain is that the fall of Valyria coincided with a general weakening of magic throughout the world, as if the Freehold's destruction had broken something fundamental in the fabric of reality itself. The Age of Wonders ended in fire, and magic retreated into shadow and legend. The language of Valyria survives, even though the empire that created it lies in ruins, preserved through the centuries in various forms across Essos. High Valyrian was the language of the Dragon Lords, a tongue of considerable complexity and beauty, still taught to the educated and noble of the free cities and beyond. The language itself carries a musical quality, with flowing sounds that some claim retain echoes of the spells once cast in Valyrian towers. After the Doom, as the free cities developed independently, High Valyrian evolved into several bastard dialects, each city developing its own variation of the ancient tongue. Meereen speaks one dialect, Volantis another, while the Low Valyrian of Slaver's Bay differs significantly from both. Despite these variations, speakers of different dialects can usually understand each other with some effort, united by their common root in the language of dragons. In Westeros, the Targaryens maintained the use of High Valyrian as a mark of their heritage, teaching it to their children and using it for important ceremonies. The words of House Targaryen, fire and blood, are spoken in High Valyrian as Zaldris's Buzdari Ixos Daor, a phrase that carries weight across centuries. Written High Valyrian uses glyphs that curve and flow like flames frozen in ink, beautiful to look upon even for those who cannot read their meaning. The survival of this language keeps alive a connection to Valyria, allowing modern scholars to read what few texts escaped the Doom. The Valyrian roads remain one of the most visible and enduring legacies of the fallen empire, stretching across Essos like scars upon the land. These roads were not built in the manner of later constructions, with stones laid and mortared together, but rather fused as single pieces through processes combining engineering and magic. The result is roads that seem almost like natural formations of stone, smooth and even, resistant to weathering and time. Thousands of years after Valyrian hands shaped them, these roads remain the primary routes for trade and travel across much of Essos, still superior to anything built in the centuries since the Doom. Merchants and armies alike use Valyrian roads, traveling paths that once carried the Dragon Lords themselves. The roads cross rivers on bridges of the same fused stone, spanning distances that modern engineers would struggle to match. Some of these bridges stand hundreds of feet above the water, yet show no signs of weakness or decay. Where Valyrian roads exist, commerce flows more easily, and kingdoms grow stronger. The free cities particularly benefit from this ancient infrastructure, their prosperity built partially on roads they did not build and cannot replicate. Walking a Valyrian road means stepping on stones shaped by magic, following paths that dragons once flew above. The roads serve as reminders of what was lost, physical evidence of capabilities the world no longer possesses. Among the 40 Dragon Lord families of Valyria, House Targaryen was neither the most powerful nor the most prestigious, occupying a middle rank in the complex hierarchy of the Freehold. The Targaryens controlled dragons as all the great houses did, but their influence in Valyrian politics was modest compared to families with longer lineages or greater wealth. This relatively minor status makes their survival after the Doom all the more remarkable, as if fate had preserved them specifically to carry forward the blood of old Valyria. The family's seat was on the western edge of Valyrian territory, closer to Westeros than most Dragon Lord holdings, a position that would prove crucial to their survival. The Targaryens practiced the Valyrian custom of wedding brother to sister to keep the dragon blood pure, a tradition they would maintain even after moving to Westeros. Their house words, fire and blood, epitomized the Valyrian philosophy, acknowledging both the power they wielded and the price of that power. In the complex social structure of the Freehold, the Targaryens were respected but not feared, influential but not dominant. This comfortable obscurity meant few paid attention when they began selling their properties and preparing to depart, dismissed as eccentric rather than prophetic. The old blood of Valyria flowed through many houses, but in the end, only Targaryen blood survived the fire. 12 years before the doom of Valyria, a young woman named Daenerys Targaryen began experiencing vivid, terrible dreams that foretold the destruction of the Freehold. These were not ordinary nightmares, but prophetic visions of such power and clarity that they could not be dismissed or ignored. Daenerys, who would later be known as Dianus the Dreamer, saw in her sleep the 14 flames erupting as one, the land torn apart, the proud towers falling, and the sea swallowing the ruins. She witnessed the death of dragons in their thousands, saw the greatest city the world had known reduced to ash and memory. Her dreams were so disturbing, so vivid in their apocalyptic detail, that her father, Enar Targaryen, the head of their house, took the unprecedented step of believing her completely. The Targaryens had a history of prophetic dreams running through their bloodline, an ability that seemed connected somehow to their affinity with dragons and magic. Daenerys' visions were particularly powerful, leaving her shaken and changed, marked by knowledge of a future she could foresee but not prevent. Her gift, if such a tormented ability can be called a gift, saved her family but could not save her people. The weight of knowing the doom was coming, of living with that knowledge for 12 years while others dismissed her warnings, must have been almost unbearable. She would die in exile, never seeing Valyria again, having been proven horrifyingly correct. Acting on his daughter's visions, Lord Enar Targaryen made the momentous decision to abandon Valyria entirely, selling all the family's holdings in the freehold and moving across the narrow sea to Dragonstone. This decision was remarkable not only for the faith it showed in Daenerys' dreams, but for the sacrifice it required. The Targaryens sold estates, properties, and treasures accumulated over generations, liquidating their entire position in Valyrian society. They gathered their family, their most trusted retainers, and their 5 dragons, then sailed west to an ancient Valyrian outpost on a bleak island off the coast of Westeros. Dragonstone had been built centuries earlier as a western watchtower of the freehold, a fortress carved from volcanic stone in the Valyrian style, shaped to resemble dragons in architectural form. It was isolated, far from the centers of power and culture that defined Valyrian life, a place of exile more than opportunity. Other dragon lords viewed the Targaryens' departure with amusement and contempt, making jokes about a family fleeing from dreams, unable to understand why anyone would abandon Valyria's splendor for a remote island fortress. Aenar Targaryen endured this mockery, maintaining his resolve even as friends and relatives questioned his judgment. The move meant leaving behind everything familiar, abandoning the world's greatest civilization based on visions of its destruction. It took tremendous courage and faith, and it saved the Targaryen line from extinction. The 5 dragons that accompanied the Targaryens to Dragonstone represented the salvation of these magnificent creatures from complete extinction. While the freehold had possessed thousands of dragons among its 40 families, all of those dragons perished in the doom or in the chaos that followed. The 5 Targaryen dragons became, by default, the last dragons in the world, the only survivors of creatures that had dominated the skies of Essos for thousands of years. Among these 5 were ancestors of the great dragons that would later conquer Westeros: Balerion, Vhagar, and Meraxes, names that would echo through history. These dragons allowed the Targaryens not merely to survive in exile, but to eventually thrive, providing power that no force in Westeros could match when the time came for conquest. The bond between Targaryen and dragon remained strong even in their new home, the bloodline maintaining its affinity for these incredible creatures. On Dragonstone, the Targaryens continued the practices of dragon breeding and training that they had learned in Valyria, knowledge that would have been lost otherwise. The survival of these 5 dragons meant that dragonkind itself survived, that the Age of Dragons could continue even after the civilization that had bred them was destroyed. Without Daenerys' warning and Enar's decision, dragons themselves might have become nothing but legends, creatures of myth rather than history. The world would have been diminished by their loss, made smaller and less wondrous. The doom of Valyria came without further warning on a single terrible day, ending 5,000 years of civilization in hours of fire and destruction. The exact date has been lost to history, though it occurred approximately 400 years before the War of the 5 Kings in Westeros, during what would have been a normal summer day in the freehold. The 14 flames, which had burned steadily for millennia, suddenly erupted with unimaginable violence, all at once, as if some force had torn away whatever restraints had kept them contained. The eruptions were so massive that they tore the land itself apart, shattering the Valyrian peninsula and sending pieces of it plunging beneath the waves. The capital city of Valyria, the greatest metropolis the world had ever seen, simply ceased to exist, obliterated so completely that its precise location is now uncertain. Every dragon lord who remained in the freehold perished, along with their dragons, their families, their servants, and the countless slaves who had no means of escape. The destruction was so swift and complete that few, if any, had time to understand what was happening before they were overcome by fire, ash, and poisonous gases. The beautiful towers of Dragonstone melted or shattered. The fused roads cracked and buckled, and the sea rushed in to fill the wounds torn in the land. In a matter of hours, the greatest empire the world had known became a smoking ruin, a tomb for millions, a wound in the earth that would never truly heal. The seas around the shattered Valyrian peninsula transformed into what would become known as the Smoking Sea, a region of supernatural danger that persists centuries after the doom. The water itself remains hot, releasing steam and noxious fumes that rise in clouds above the surface, creating an atmosphere of perpetual haze and menace. Ships that venture too deep into the Smoking Sea often never return, their crews apparently overcome by toxic gases or other dangers lurking in the mist. The few vessels that have survived passage through these waters report bizarre phenomena. Strange lights moving beneath the surface, ruins visible when the mist briefly clears, sounds that might be settling stones or might be something else entirely. The seafloor is shallow in places where mountains once stood above water, and these sunken peaks pose navigational hazards for any ship attempting passage. The heat rising from below keeps the water warm enough to steam even in winter, creating an environment unlike anywhere else in the known world. Sailors tell tales of demons and monsters dwelling in the Smoking Sea, creatures born from or drawn to the cataclysm, though such claims are difficult to verify. What is certain is that the Smoking Sea remains dangerous, unstable, haunted by the ghosts of the millions who perished there. The region serves as a physical reminder of the doom, a scar upon the world that refuses to heal, marking the place where an empire died. The ruins of Valyria itself still exist in some form, though only the bravest or most foolhardy dare approach them. What structures survived the initial destruction remain half submerged in the Smoking Sea, broken towers of black stone jutting from water and mist like the bones of some massive dragon. These ruins are said to contain treasures beyond measure: Valyrian steel blades, ancient texts, arcane artifacts, and gold in quantity sufficient to purchase kingdoms. The lure of such wealth has drawn expeditions throughout the centuries since the Doom, treasure hunters and adventurers willing to risk the dangers for potential rewards. Few of these expeditions return, and those that do often bring back more tales than treasure. The ruins themselves are structurally unstable, weakened by the cataclysm and the centuries since, liable to collapse without warning. Beyond physical dangers, the ruins reportedly host other threats: strange creatures, lingering magical effects, and an atmosphere of dread that wears on the mind of visitors. Some who have approached the ruins and lived speak of feeling watched, of seeing movement in the mist that might be nothing or might be something that once was human. The greatest concentration of Valyrian architectural achievement now serves as a tomb and a warning, a place where the proud towers stand half-fallen in poisoned waters. The ruins represent Valyria's past glory and present desolation in equal measure, a place of memory and loss. The question of what caused the doom has occupied scholars and historians for centuries. yet no definitive answer has emerged from study or speculation. The simultaneous eruption of all 14 flames suggests some triggering event of enormous power, but whether this event was natural, accidental, or deliberate remains unknown. Some Meisters argue that the catastrophe was purely geological, a natural volcanic event of unusual magnitude but explicable within known principles. Others point to Valyria's extensive use of magic and suggest that sorcerous experiments or rituals might have destabilized the volcanic systems. A darker theory, popular in Bravos, claims that the Faceless Men, the assassin cult founded by escaped Valyrian slaves, somehow engineered the doom as revenge for centuries of bondage, though how slaves could cause such devastation is unclear. Some religious scholars interpret the doom as divine judgment, the gods punishing Valyrian pride and cruelty. More fantastical theories exist as well, involving dragons turning on their masters or ancient entities stirring beneath the mountains. The truth is that none know with certainty what happened, and likely none ever will. The simultaneity of the eruptions argues against simple natural causes, but the scale of destruction seems beyond what any human agency could achieve. The mystery remains unsolved, another secret buried in the ashes, and the debate continues in halls of learning across the known world. Perhaps some questions are meant to stay unanswered, some mysteries meant to remain unsolved. The immediate aftermath of the doom plunged Essos into chaos as the structure that had maintained order for millennia suddenly vanished. The Valyrian freehold had controlled or influenced virtually every aspect of life across the continent, and its absence left a power vacuum of staggering proportions. The free cities, which had been Valyrian colonies and subject states, suddenly found themselves independent, without any central authority to command them. Volantis, the oldest and most powerful of the free cities, immediately attempted to claim Valyria's position, declaring itself the rightful heir to the freehold and beginning military campaigns to subjugate the other cities. This triggered the Century of Blood, a period of near constant warfare as various powers fought for dominance. The wars raged for generations, with alliances forming and breaking, cities rising and falling, and millions perishing in conflicts that achieved little lasting change. Eventually, exhaustion more than resolution ended the worst of the fighting, with no single power able to claim supremacy over all others. The free cities emerged as independent city-states, each developing its own character and culture, while maintaining varying degrees of Valyrian tradition. The political map of Essos was redrawn in blood, and the unified world of the freehold fragmented into competing powers that would remain divided for centuries to come. The chaos and violence of this period scarred Essos deeply, a trauma from which the continent arguably never fully recovered. The free cities that emerged from Valyria's ashes each preserved different aspects of the freehold's culture and traditions, creating a diverse family of states with common roots but divergent paths. Volantis maintained the strongest claim to Valyrian heritage, keeping the language pure, continuing the practice of slavery, and building in the old architectural styles with black stone and dragon motifs. The city's triarchs still rule from a palace adorned with dragonstone, and the old blood of Valyria runs through the noble families who control the city. Lys became known for its pleasure houses and the beauty of its people, many of whom carry Valyrian features of silver gold hair and purple eyes. Myr developed expertise in lenses and fine artisanship, while Tyrosh became famous for its dyes and its mercenary companies. Pentos evolved into a wealthy trading city, abandoning many Valyrian traditions while maintaining the language and some customs. Braavos, founded by escaped slaves, explicitly rejected Valyrian culture, refusing to allow slavery within its borders and developing a unique identity centered on freedom and secrecy. Each free city adapted to its new independence differently, emphasizing different aspects of their shared heritage. The High Valyrian language evolved into distinct dialects in each city, while architectural styles, social customs, and political structures diverged. Yet all these cities remained connected by their common origin, all children of Valyria despite their differences. The fallen empire's influence continued to shape Essos even centuries after the Doom, a ghost that haunted the living civilization. Valyrian steel became incomparably precious after the Doom destroyed the knowledge of its creation, transforming useful tools into legendary treasures. Before the catastrophe, Valyrian steel was relatively common among the wealthy and powerful of the Freehold, with thousands of blades in circulation. After the Doom, when it became clear that no one could replicate the forging process, existing Valyrian steel weapons became heirlooms guarded more carefully than gold. In Westeros, noble houses that possessed Valyrian steel swords treated them as symbols of ancient lineage and high status, giving them names and passing them down through generations. House Stark's Ice, House Lannister's Bright Roar, House Mormont's Longclaw. These weapons carried histories as important as their military value. The loss of a Valyrian steel blade brought shame to a house, while gaining one brought prestige and honor. The weapons themselves remained as effective as the day they were forged, their edges never dulling, their metal never corroding, as if time itself had no power over them. This supernatural durability only increased their mystique and value. Wealthy merchants and ambitious lords would offer fortunes for even a damaged or broken Valyrian steel weapon, knowing that skilled smiths could reforge existing metal into new shapes, if not create new metal from raw materials. The secret of making Valyrian steel died with the smiths of the Freehold, another loss to add to the immense catalog of knowledge destroyed in the Doom. Each surviving blade represents a fragment of old Valyria, a piece of the lost world preserved in steel. The Targaryens remained on Dragonstone for over a century after the Doom, consolidating their power and recovering from the trauma of exile. The island fortress became the last outpost of Valyrian culture, a place where the old language, customs, and traditions were maintained even as they faded or transformed elsewhere. The family continued breeding and raising dragons, maintaining the knowledge and practices that had defined the Dragon Lords. During this period, the Targaryens occasionally intervened in Essosi affairs, but largely focused on their isolated domain, building their strength slowly. They watched the century of blood from a distance, observing the chaos in the lands they had fled. The decision to eventually conquer Westeros rather than attempt to reclaim or rebuild in Essos would prove momentous for history. Aegon the Conqueror, more than a century after the Doom, would use the power of dragons to forge the Seven Kingdoms into one, creating a new empire from the ruins of the old. The Targaryen conquest of Westeros represented not just political and military achievement, but the transplanting of Valyrian civilization to new soil. For nearly 300 years, the Targaryen dynasty would rule Westeros, bringing dragons, Valyrian customs, and the High Valyrian language to a land that had never known such things. In this way, Valyria's influence extended even beyond its destruction, carried by the one family that had survived to see the world that came after. The Doom made the Targaryens what they became, refugees who became conquerors, exiles who became kings. The dragons that the Targaryens brought to Westeros grew to enormous sizes in their new home, perhaps freed from whatever constraints had existed in Valyria's crowded skies. Balerion, the Black Dread, who had hatched in Valyria before the Doom and survived to serve 3 Targaryen kings, grew to dimensions that defied belief. His skull, displayed in the Red Keep's throne room even centuries after his death, is large enough that a horse could walk through his jaws. Vhagar, Meraxes, and later dragons born in Westeros also reached tremendous sizes, creating an aerial force that no earthly army could resist. The Targaryen dragons enabled the conquest of 6 independent kingdoms in just 2 years of campaigning, a military achievement impossible without these flying weapons. Yet the dragons also represented something more: living connections to Valyria, creatures that had flown above the freehold and now ruled the skies of Westeros. As the decades passed, fewer and fewer people remembered Valyria as anything but legend. But the dragons remained as proof that the legends were real. The relationship between Targaryen and dragon continued to define the dynasty, with dragon riders being essential to the family's power and prestige. When the last dragons died during the reign of Aegon III, the Targaryen hold-on power began its slow decline, as if the loss of these creatures weakened something fundamental in the bloodline. The dragons were the last living piece of old Valyria, and when they vanished, that final connection to the freehold was severed forever. The magic that had once been commonplace in Valyria faded significantly after the Doom, as if the destruction of the freehold had broken something in the world itself. Sorcerers in the free cities found their powers weakening, their spells less effective, their visions less clear. The strong magic that had shaped Valyrian civilization became rare and uncertain, retreating into shadow and superstition. Some scholars theorize that Valyrian mages had discovered methods for amplifying magical forces, and that the destruction of their apparatus or the death of their practitioners removed whatever had strengthened magic throughout the known world. Others suggest that magic operates in cycles, waxing and waning like the seasons, and that the Doom coincided with the beginning of a period of magical ebb. Whatever the cause, the centuries following the Doom saw magic become increasingly rare and distrusted, with practitioners relegated to the margins of society. The Targaryens retained some connection to mystical forces through their dragon bond and occasional prophetic dreams, but even this was weak compared to what the Dragon Lords had once commanded. In Westeros, the Maesters of the Citadel promoted rational, scientific thinking and actively discouraged belief in magic, arguing that the Age of Wonders had passed. By the time of the War of the Five Kings, magic had become so rare that many educated people dismissed it as mere superstition, forgetting or denying the powers that had once shaped kingdoms. The return of Daenerys' dragons marked magic's slow return to the world, as if the presence of dragons again allowed supernatural forces to strengthen. Even this was pale compared to what Valyria had known, a candle's flame beside a bonfire. The architectural techniques of Valyria remain one of the most visible and mysterious legacies of the fallen empire. Buildings constructed using Valyrian methods possessed a distinctive appearance. Smooth, seamless surfaces of black or dark gray stone that seemed almost like glass, yet were harder and more durable than regular stone. The structures often incorporated dramatic curves and soaring heights that would be impossible to achieve with normal masonry, suggesting that magic played a role in the construction process. Dragonstone Castle, built as a Valyrian outpost centuries before the Doom, exemplifies this style with its towers shaped like dragons in various poses. The stone itself seems to have been softened or liquefied during construction, then fused into permanent hardness, creating buildings that have endured for thousands of years with minimal weathering. No architect in the centuries since the Doom has successfully replicated these techniques, and modern attempts to build in the Valyrian style invariably fall short, lacking the seamless quality and supernatural durability of authentic examples. The black walls of Volantis, which enclose the oldest part of that city, stand as another example of Valyrian construction, massive fortifications that have never been breached. These walls tower above the surrounding landscape, built from the same fused stone as the roads, creating an impregnable boundary around the heart of the city. Walking among Valyrian architecture means experiencing spaces designed for giants of ambition, structures that dwarf human scale and remind visitors of the heights that civilization can achieve before falling. The Faceless Men of Braavos claim origins deeply connected to Valyrian slavery, though the full truth of their founding remains shrouded in the secrecy the Order maintains. According to their own accounts, the Faceless Men began among slaves in the mines beneath the 14 Flames, where conditions were so terrible that death seemed a mercy. The first Faceless Man supposedly learned to grant this mercy, becoming an assassin whose victims viewed death as release from suffering. From these grim beginnings, the Order evolved into something far more complex, a religious organization devoted to the many-faced God, offering the gift of death to those who pray for it while also accepting contracts to kill for payment. When Braavos was founded by escaped Valyrian slaves, the Faceless Men came with them, establishing their House of Black and White in the secret city. The Order's connection to Valyria runs deep, and some whisper that the Faceless Men somehow caused or contributed to the Doom, exacting ultimate revenge on the civilization that had enslaved their founders. These claims remain speculation, as the Faceless Men neither confirm nor deny involvement, maintaining the mystery that serves their purposes. What is certain is that the Order harbors no love for the legacy of Valyria, viewing the Freehold as a monument to cruelty and injustice. Their very existence represents both a product of Valyrian civilization and a rejection of it. Slaves who became assassins, victims who became agents of death. The relationship between the Faceless Men and the Doom remains one of history's intriguing mysteries, a question without definitive answer. The prophecies and visions that ran through Valyrian bloodlines represented another form of power that survived the Doom in limited form. Daenerys the Dreamer was the most famous of the dragon dreamers, but she was not unique in possessing this ability. Throughout Targaryen history, various family members experienced prophetic dreams of varying clarity and power, visions that sometimes came true and sometimes did not. Aegon the Conqueror supposedly had a dream that showed him a great darkness coming from the north, a threat that could only be defeated by a unified Westeros. This vision reportedly motivated his conquest of the Seven Kingdoms. Other Targaryens dreamed of dragons, of battles, of deaths and births that had not yet occurred. The prophetic gift seemed strongest in those with the purest Valyrian blood, maintained through the family's practice of wedding brother to sister. Yet the visions were never entirely reliable, sometimes misleading or too symbolic to interpret correctly, more burden than blessing for those who possessed the gift. The ability to glimpse futures that might be was both power and curse, granting knowledge but not necessarily understanding, showing possibilities without revealing which would actually come to pass. After the dragons died, and Targaryen blood mixed more freely with non-Valyrian lineages, the prophetic dreams became increasingly rare, another piece of old Valyria fading into history. Yet the few dreams that did occur remained significant, influencing decisions and shaping events in ways both subtle and profound. The dragon dreams represented the last vestige of Valyrian magic in Westeros, a connection to mysteries that the Maester's rationalism could not explain away. The climate of the Valyrian peninsula itself was affected by the 14 flames, kept perpetually warm by the volcanic heat that permeated the land. Winters were mild in Valyria, and summers seemingly endless, creating an environment where certain crops and practices flourished that would be impossible in colder regions. The pleasant climate contributed to Valyria's prosperity, allowing year-round agriculture and making the capital a comfortable place to live despite its proximity to active volcanoes. After the Doom, the climate of the region changed dramatically. The Smoking Sea remains hot, releasing steam and heat into the atmosphere, but the land that once was Valyria is now largely gone, replaced by shallow, toxic waters. The few islands that remain above the surface are barren and dangerous, choked with volcanic gases and unstable ground. The pleasant Mediterranean-like climate of Old Valyria exists now only in memory and descriptions found in ancient texts. This environmental transformation mirrors the larger cataclysm, a change so complete that even the weather patterns shifted. The warmth that once drew people to Valyria now serves only to keep the Smoking Sea perpetually steaming, a change from life-giving to death-dealing. Sailors who venture too close report that the air itself feels wrong, thick and heavy, hard to breathe even when free of visible fumes. The transformation of Valyria's climate from welcoming to hostile serves as another reminder of how completely the catastrophe altered everything it touched, changing not just human society, but the very nature of the land and air themselves. The few expeditions that have ventured into the ruins of Valyria and survived to report back tell disturbing tales of what they found. Tyrion Lannister, sailing past the ruins during his journey to Meereen, glimpsed broken towers and collapsed structures through the mist, hearing sounds that might have been settling stones or might have been something else. The Ha'at dwarf reported feeling watched, sensing malevolence in the very atmosphere of the place. Other accounts mention strange creatures glimpsed briefly in the fog, twisted things that might have been human once, or might never have been human at all. Some speak of stone men, people afflicted with grayscale who have taken refuge in the ruins, slowly turning to living statues as the disease progresses. These poor souls attack any ships that venture too close, perhaps hoping to escape their doomed refuge, or perhaps simply driven mad by their condition. The ruins themselves are structurally unsound. Towers that might collapse at any moment, floors that could give way, walls ready to tumble into the poisoned sea. Navigating through the remains of Valyria requires constant vigilance against both physical and perhaps supernatural dangers. The treasures that supposedly lie within the ruins remain mostly unclaimed, protected by hazards that even the bravest or greediest find difficult to overcome. The ruins have become a tomb in truth, a place where the dead civilization rests unquiet, and where the living venture at their great peril. Those who seek Valyria's lost wealth usually find only death. The cultural impact of Valyria's fall extended far beyond political and economic consequences to reshape how people thought about civilization, power, and permanence. Before the Doom, the Valyrian freehold had existed for so long that many viewed it as eternal, as permanent as the landscape itself. The sudden, complete destruction of this seemingly invincible empire taught a harsh lesson about impermanence and hubris. In the centuries since, the Doom has served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of overconfidence and the inevitability of decline. Scholars and philosophers point to Valyria when discussing the transient nature of all human achievements, how even the greatest civilizations are ultimately fragile. Religious thinkers interpret the Doom as proof of divine power, evidence that no earthly kingdom can stand against the will of the gods. The memory of Valyria shapes how people view dragons, magic, and ambition, creating a complicated legacy of wonder mixed with warning. In Westeros, particularly after the Targaryen conquest, the phrase "beware the pride of old Valyria" became common when discussing ambitious projects or overreaching plans. The lesson that power and glory can vanish in a day, that entire civilizations can fall in hours, has been absorbed into the collective consciousness of multiple cultures. Yet, paradoxically, Valyria also represents an ideal of cultural achievement, a height of civilization that later ages aspire to without ever quite reaching. The freehold serves simultaneously as inspiration and warning, a reminder of both what humans can achieve and how completely such achievements can be destroyed. The libraries of Valyria contained knowledge accumulated over 5,000 years of civilization. Texts covering every subject from dragon breeding to astronomy, from magic to metallurgy. All of this learning was lost in the Doom, burned or drowned when the city fell. The Maesters of the Citadel in Westeros possess a few texts that originated in Valyria, brought west before the catastrophe or copied from scrolls that escaped the destruction. These fragments represent a tiny fraction of what once existed, tantalizing glimpses of the sophisticated learning that characterized Valyrian scholarship. Some free cities maintain libraries with Valyrian texts, particularly Volantis, but these collections too are shadows of what was lost. The destruction of Valyrian libraries set back human knowledge by centuries in multiple fields, creating gaps that later scholars struggled to fill through their own research. Information about history, geography, and science that had been common knowledge in the freehold became mysteries that required painstaking rediscovery. The loss was particularly acute in magical arts, where the practical knowledge accumulated by generations of Valyrian sorcerers simply vanished. Modern mages, working from fragments and partial texts, can barely understand the principles their Valyrian predecessors considered basic. The burning of the libraries was an intellectual catastrophe on par with the physical destruction, erasing the written memory of a civilization. In the ashes of Valyria lie not just ruins and bodies, but also books, scrolls, and tablets containing wisdom the world will never see again. The loss of knowledge represents its own kind of death, the extinguishing of light that can never be fully rekindled. Volantis, as the oldest and first founded of the free cities, maintained the strongest connection to Valyrian tradition and harbored the greatest ambition to restore the freehold's glory. After the Doom, Volantis possessed the largest population, the greatest military might, and the most authentic claim to Valyrian heritage among all surviving cities. The Triarchs who ruled Volantis attempted to rebuild the empire, launching military campaigns intended to subjugate the other free cities and create a new freehold with Volantis at its center. These wars, part of the larger century of blood, initially met with success as Valentine armies conquered and occupied several neighboring cities. For a time, it seemed Volantis might actually succeed in its ambitious goal, that the freehold might rise again under new management. However, the other free cities eventually united against Valentine hegemony, forming alliances that proved stronger than Volantis could overcome. The wars dragged on for generations, bleeding Volantis of resources and manpower, until finally the city was forced to accept that its dream of restoring the empire was impossible. The failure of Volantis to rebuild Valyria marked the definitive end of any hope that the freehold might be reconstructed. The free cities would remain independent, and the unified world of Old Valyria would not return. Yet, Volantis never fully abandoned its pretensions, maintaining Valyrian customs more strictly than other cities, preserving the pure language and keeping alive the memory of what it had tried to achieve. The city's famous Long Bridge, stretching across the Rhône, was built in the Valyrian style as a statement of continuity with the Lost Empire. Volantis represents both the preservation of Valyrian culture and the failure to restore Valyrian power, a living monument to both legacy and loss. The psychological impact of the doom on those who survived it or heard news of it must have been devastating. Imagine living in a world where the Valyrian freehold had existed as long as anyone could remember, a permanent fixture of life, only to learn in a single day that it had been completely destroyed. The shock would have been similar to learning that the sun would no longer rise, that the most fundamental truth of existence had suddenly changed. For Valyrians living abroad, particularly in the free cities, the news would have brought grief, horror, and existential uncertainty. Many would have lost family, friends, and loved ones in the catastrophe, with no bodies to mourn or graves to visit. The survivors faced not just personal loss, but the destruction of their entire civilization. The world they had known transformed beyond recognition. In Westeros, the Targaryens on Dragonstone must have felt complicated emotions: grief for their lost homeland, horror at the fulfillment of Daenerys' prophecy, guilt at having survived when so many perished, and vindication that their decision to leave had been correct. The trauma of the doom would have echoed through generations, shaping the Targaryen identity as a family of survivors, the last of their kind. Throughout Essos, the psychological impact contributed to the chaos and violence of the Century of Blood, as societies struggled to reorganize without the structure the freehold had provided. The doom was not just a physical catastrophe, but a mental one, shattering assumptions and creating wounds that would take centuries to heal if they ever truly healed at all. The Smoking Sea remains the most visible and enduring physical manifestation of the doom, a scar upon the world that shows no signs of fading even after centuries. The water in this region is demonstrably hotter than normal, creating steam that rises perpetually into the air. The chemical composition of the water has been altered by volcanic materials, making it toxic to drink and harmful to prolonged contact with skin. Ships that must cross through the Smoking Sea do so as quickly as possible, with sailors holding damp cloths over their faces to filter the acrid air. The seafloor beneath the water is chaotic, a jumble of collapsed structures, broken stone, and volcanic rock, creating navigational hazards that shift with currents and continuing geological instability. Some regions of the Smoking Sea are shallow enough that ruins break the surface at low tide, creating temporary islands of broken stone that vanish again as the water rises. These ephemeral islands are particularly dangerous, as their appearance and disappearance is unpredictable, capable of trapping ships that ventured too close. The overall atmosphere of the Smoking Sea is one of wrongness, a place that feels inimical to life, where the natural order has been disrupted and never fully restored. Sailors speak of the region with superstitious dread, sharing stories of previous ships that ventured into the mist and never emerged. The Smoking Sea serves as a constant reminder of the doom, visible from distant shores as a haze on the horizon, a mark of tragedy that time cannot erase. The dragons that perished in the doom died in their thousands, representing a loss of these magnificent creatures that approached extinction. Before the catastrophe, dragons had been common in Valyria, with every Dragonlord family controlling multiple beasts. The skies above the freehold would have been regularly marked by draconic flight, the sight so common as to be unremarkable to residents. The doom killed these dragons as surely as it killed their riders, perhaps through the heat and violence of the eruptions, perhaps through the collapse of their roosts and the structures where they lived. Only the 5 dragons that had accompanied the Targaryens to Dragonstone survived, and from this tiny population would come all the dragons that later appeared in Westeros. The loss of genetic diversity in dragon bloodlines became apparent in later generations, as inbreeding among the limited dragon population produced increasingly stunted and weak specimens. The dragons born in Westeros never matched the size and power of the greatest Valyrian dragons, partly due to captivity, but possibly also due to this genetic bottleneck. The death of thousands of dragons in the Doom represents an ecological catastrophe on par with the human loss, the near extinction of a species that had been integral to the ecosystem and culture of Essos. When the last Targaryen dragons died during the reign of Aegon III, dragons seemed gone from the world forever, until Daenerys Targaryen managed to hatch 3 eggs in the fires of Khal Drogo's funeral pyre. Even this miraculous rebirth produced only 3 dragons, a shadow of the thousands that once darkened Valyrian skies. The world with only 3 dragons is diminished compared to what it was, less wondrous and less terrible. The age of dragons reduced to pale memory of its former glory. The practice of wedding brother to sister, which the Targaryens brought to Westeros and maintained despite local revulsion, originated in the Valyrian freehold as a method of keeping dragon blood pure. The Dragonlord families believed that the ability to bond with and control dragons ran in their bloodlines, and that this precious gift could be diluted or lost through marriage with common people. By wedding sibling to sibling, the Valyrians ensured that their children would possess concentrated dragon blood, maintaining the family's ability to command their flying weapons. This practice also prevented the dispersal of power and wealth that would occur if daughters married into other families, keeping everything consolidated within each Dragonlord house. The custom was accepted in Valyria as normal and necessary, though peoples of other cultures often found it shocking. When the Targaryens came to Westeros, they continued the practice despite the Faith of the Seven's strong prohibition against incest, creating tension that would eventually erupt into open conflict. The Targaryens argued, correctly, that this was their ancient custom, part of their identity as the blood of the dragon. The genetic consequences of sustained incest became apparent in later Targaryen generations, with madness appearing frequently in the family line, though it's unclear whether this was due to inbreeding or some other factor related to their magical heritage. The practice represented both the Targaryens' fidelity to Valyrian tradition and their separateness from the society they ruled, marking them as different, special, and, to some eyes, abominable. After Robert's rebellion ended Targaryen rule, the custom died with the dynasty, another piece of old Valyria that did not survive into the modern world. The speed with which Valyria was destroyed has contributed to the lasting impact of the doom on human imagination and fear. A catastrophe that unfolded over years or even months would be terrible but comprehensible. Something that people could react to, flee from, adapt to. The doom occurred in hours, transforming the world so quickly that comprehension came only after the fact, when survival or death had already been determined. This suddenness makes the event particularly horrifying in retrospect. The realization that everything can change not gradually, but in a moment. That security and civilization are more fragile than we want to believe. The lesson of Valyria's swift fall has influenced military strategy, urban planning, and disaster preparedness in the centuries since, with leaders conscious that catastrophe can strike without warning. In literature and song, the doom is often portrayed as arriving on an ordinary day, with people going about their normal activities before being overwhelmed by fire, emphasizing the randomness and unpredictability of fate. The swiftness also meant that very little was saved, very few warnings given, very little opportunity for escape or salvage. If the doom had unfolded more slowly, perhaps more dragons would have survived, more people escaped, more texts and treasures been carried to safety. Instead, the speed of destruction ensured maximum loss, giving Valyria no chance to preserve even fragments of itself. This complete, sudden erasure makes the doom simultaneously fascinating and terrifying to later ages. A reminder that everything can end not with a whimper, but with a bang that echoes through centuries. The question of whether the doom could happen again in other locations haunts those who study volcanology and natural disasters. The 14 flames were unusually concentrated, a cluster of volcanic peaks in close proximity, and such configurations are rare. Dragonstone, the island fortress where the Targaryens settled, sits on a volcanic island, though one far less active than the Valyrian mountains. The volcano beneath Dragonstone has shown no signs of the kind of catastrophic activity that destroyed Valyria, remaining relatively dormant throughout recorded history. Other volcanic regions in the known world exist, but have not experienced Valyria-scale catastrophes, suggesting that whatever happened to the freehold was unusual even by the standards of volcanic disasters. However, the possibility that similar eruptions could occur elsewhere remains a source of anxiety for people living near active volcanoes. The maesters of the Citadel have studied volcanic activity extensively, trying to understand the mechanisms that might have caused the doom, hoping to develop methods for predicting similar events. Their studies have produced useful knowledge about volcanoes in general, but no definitive answers about the Valyrian catastrophe specifically. The uncertainty compounds the fear, as the lack of clear understanding means no one can definitively say, "This cannot happen here." Cities built near volcanoes maintain watchfulness, remembering that Valyria too had lived with its 14 flames for thousands of years before those flames turned destroyer. The doom teaches that living with danger for a long time does not mean the danger is tamed, that forces larger than human civilization remain beyond our control, capable of reasserting themselves with devastating results. Among the treasures lost in the doom were dragon eggs beyond counting, stores of these precious objects that later ages could hardly imagine. In the freehold, dragon eggs would have been valuable but not impossibly rare, as the numerous dragons of the 40 families presumably produced new eggs regularly. After the doom, dragon eggs became among the rarest and most valuable objects in the world. each one representing the potential for new dragons to be born. The Targaryens possessed several eggs, which they kept on Dragonstone and later in King's Landing, though hatching them proved increasingly difficult as magic faded from the world. Most eggs turned to stone, fossilized by time, becoming beautiful ornaments rather than potential life. The failed attempts to hatch these eggs became tragedies in their own right. Most notably, the fire at Summerhall that killed King Aegon and several of his family members. The 3 eggs that Daenerys received as a wedding gift were believed to be fossilized, ancient beyond counting, until she successfully hatched them in Khal Drogo's funeral pyre through a combination of magic, sacrifice, and forces not fully understood. These 3 dragons represented an impossible rebirth, the return of creatures thought extinct forever. In Valyria before the Doom, 3 dragons would have been unremarkable, a small clutch from a single hatching. After the Doom, 3 dragons made their possessor potentially the most powerful individual in the world, capable of reshaping kingdoms and destinies. The transformation of dragon eggs from valuable but available to impossibly precious represents. In miniature, the larger changes the Doom brought to the world, turning what was common into what was legendary. The children born in the free cities in the years immediately following the Doom grew up in a world fundamentally different from the one their parents had known. Where their parents had lived in a structured empire with clear hierarchies and established rules, these children came of age in chaos, uncertainty, and war. The generation that experienced the Doom directly carried trauma, but the next generation inherited only confusion and conflict, never knowing the stability their elders remembered. These children would become the soldiers, leaders, and builders who fought the Century of Blood and eventually established the independent free cities as lasting polities. Their experience of growing up in post-apocalyptic conditions shaped them, and through them shaped the cultures of their cities. The absence of central authority forced local communities to become self-reliant, developing new customs and identities distinct from Valyrian tradition. In Braavos, children grew up free for the first time in their families' histories, no longer slaves or living under the shadow of slavery. In Volantis, noble children were taught to remember their Valyrian heritage and to dream of restoration, creating a generation committed to wars of reunification. The psychological and cultural impact of the Doom thus extended beyond those who experienced it directly to shape succeeding generations, ripples spreading forward through time. The world these children built would be the world that endured, and it was a world marked permanently by the catastrophe that had created it, even for those born too late to remember what was lost. The Maesters of the Citadel in Westeros maintain that magic, including the power that Valyria wielded, is largely superstition, and that most supposedly magical effects can be explained through natural principles if studied properly. This rationalist philosophy has shaped Westerosi thought for centuries, creating a culture skeptical of claims about magic, dragons, and other phenomena that seem to violate natural law. Yet the Maester's position becomes difficult to maintain when confronted with evidence like the Doom itself, an event whose scale and synchronicity challenge natural explanation. The simultaneous eruption of 14 volcanoes in close proximity, while not impossible as a natural event, seems almost too coincidental to accept without considering other causes. The Maesters argue that the Valyrians' extensive mining beneath the 14 flames, combined with their use of magic to control volcanic forces, may have destabilized natural systems, leading to catastrophic failure. This explanation attempts to incorporate both natural and magical elements, while maintaining that ultimately physical processes caused the destruction. Other scholars in Essos, less committed to rationalism, are more willing to consider purely magical explanations, including the possibility that the doom was deliberately caused by sorcery or represented divine intervention. The debate continues in academic circles, with no resolution likely. The doom remains an event that challenges attempts at purely natural explanation, while lacking definitive evidence of magical causation, existing in the uncertain space between what can be explained and what must remain mystery. For some, this uncertainty is uncomfortable. For others, it's a reminder that the world contains wonders and terrors beyond complete human understanding. Small artifacts from Valyria occasionally surface in markets across Essos and even in Westeros. Fragments of the lost civilization that somehow survived the catastrophe. These items command extraordinary prices from collectors and those interested in Valyrian culture. A bracelet of twisted silver, a cup of dark glass, a coin bearing symbols no one can read, a piece of broken sculpture. Each artifact represents a tangible connection to the vanished world, something that was held or used or made by people of the freehold. The provenance of these items is often questionable, as anyone could claim an old object came from Valyria, but experts can sometimes authenticate pieces through their style, materials, or construction techniques. The most reliable Valyrian artifacts come from collections established before the Doom, items that were already in Westeros or the Free Cities when the catastrophe occurred. These pieces are documented in family inventories, their histories known, their authenticity beyond doubt. More questionable are items said to have been retrieved from the ruins themselves, claimed by treasure hunters who say they braved the smoking sea. Some of these are genuine, pulled from half-submerged towers or found washed up on distant shores. Others are fakes, clever forgeries designed to separate fools from their gold. Regardless of authenticity, the market for Valyrian artifacts remains strong, driven by fascination with the lost civilization and desire to possess pieces of that vanished grandeur. A wealthy merchant might display a Valyrian goblet in a place of honor, not for its functional value but for what it represents. A connection to history, a piece of the world that was. These small objects serve as physical memories of Valyria, ensuring that the freehold remains more than words in books, more than stories told at night, but something real enough to touch and hold. The transformation of the Valyrian peninsula from fertile land into the smoking sea represents an environmental catastrophe of staggering proportions. What had been solid ground capable of supporting cities, farms, and millions of people became submerged beneath poisoned water in the space of hours or days. The collapse and subsidence of land on such a scale suggests that the eruptions hollowed out spaces beneath the surface, creating voids that could not support the weight of land above. When these support structures failed, massive sections of the peninsula plunged downward and were immediately covered by the sea. The geological processes involved must have been violent beyond imagination, creating earthquakes that would have been felt across Essos, generating tsunamis that struck distant shores, filling the air with ash that affected climate and sunlight for months or years afterward. The environmental impact extended far beyond Valyria itself, as volcanic materials spread through the atmosphere, potentially causing crop failures and cold years in distant lands. The local ecosystem around Valyria was completely destroyed. every living thing in the direct impact zone killed immediately. Marine life in the surrounding seas would have been devastated by the sudden influx of hot, chemically altered water and volcanic debris. The new ecosystem that eventually established itself in and around the Smoking Sea is adapted to toxic conditions, consisting primarily of simple organisms capable of surviving in hostile environments. Higher life forms avoid the region, leaving the Smoking Sea as a dead zone in ecological terms. The environmental transformation serves as another aspect of the doom's completeness. The elimination not just of human civilization, but of the natural world that supported it. The psychological need to make sense of the doom has generated numerous theories, explanations, and interpretations across the centuries since the event. Religious traditions often interpret the catastrophe as divine judgment, with the doom serving as punishment for Valyrian hubris, cruelty, or specific sins. Some faiths point to the practice of blood magic as having offended the gods, while others cite the cruel treatment of slaves. These religious explanations provide moral frameworks for understanding the event, suggesting that Valyria's fall was deserved, and that similar fates await others who commit similar sins. The Faceless Men, with their cult of death, view the doom as the work of the many-faced god, bringing the gift of death to an empire built on suffering. Secular historians and scholars attempt to construct naturalistic or magical technical explanations, analyzing available evidence to build theories about volcanic instability or sorcerous disaster. Folk explanations often involve simpler narratives: that dragons turned on their masters, that the slaves rose up and destroyed their oppressors, that a specific sorcerer's spell went wrong. These folk theories may be less sophisticated than academic ones, but they serve similar psychological functions, transforming the incomprehensible into stories that can be told and understood. The persistence of these theories and the continuing debate about the doom's cause reveals humanity's deep need to understand disaster, to find causation and meaning in catastrophe. An event without explanation is somehow more terrifying than one with a cause, even an uncomfortable or disturbing cause. The doom challenges this need because it remains genuinely mysterious, resistant to definitive explanation, forcing those who study it to accept uncertainty or commit to beliefs that cannot be proven. This ongoing uncertainty keeps the doom alive in cultural consciousness, a mystery that continues to fascinate because it continues to resist resolution. The Valyrian practice of blood magic required sacrifices that the Dragon Lords considered necessary costs of their power, though the exact nature of these rituals remains deliberately obscure in surviving texts. Ancient accounts suggest that Valyrian sorcerers believed magic drew its strength from life force itself, and that powerful spells demanded powerful offerings in return. The slaves who worked in the mines beneath the 14 Flames may have served purposes beyond simple labor, their lives potentially fueling the magical workings that kept dragons bound and volcanoes controlled. This dark aspect of Valyrian civilization is rarely discussed in the histories written by descendants of the Freehold, who prefer to remember the glory rather than the price paid for that glory. The Faceless Men, born from those mines, carry this knowledge in their doctrine, teaching that death is not evil but transformation, a gift that the first Faceless Man learned to give in the darkness beneath the mountains. Whether blood magic contributed to the doom itself remains debated, with some scholars suggesting that the sudden death of millions in the catastrophe might have released magical energies beyond anyone's ability to control or contain. The truth lies buried with the sorcerers who practiced these arts, their secrets taken to graves beneath poisoned waters. What remains clear is that Valyrian power came with costs, and that the Empire's foundation rested on suffering as much as on skill and strength. The Giscari Empire, which ruled vast territories before Valyria's rise, fell to the Dragon Lords in a series of wars that demonstrated the overwhelming advantage dragons provided in battle. Old Gus had been ancient when Valyria was young, its civilization sophisticated, and its armies formidable by the standards of the age. Yet when Valyrian Dragon Lords turned their attention eastward, seeking to expand their growing empire, the Giscari legions proved helpless against enemies who struck from the sky with fire. 5 wars were fought between the empires, each ending in Valyrian victory. Each conflict demonstrating more clearly that traditional military power meant nothing against dragons. The final war saw Old Geese itself destroyed, its walls thrown down, its fields sown with salt, so nothing would grow there again. The Giscari territories were absorbed into the freehold, their people enslaved, their culture suppressed. Yet Giscari influence persisted in subtle ways, with Valyria adopting some customs and practices from the people they conquered. The cities of Slavers Bay, Meereen, Yunkai, and Astapor were founded on Giscari ruins, blending elements of both civilizations. When Valyria fell, these cities reasserted Giscari traditions, particularly the training of unsullied warriors according to ancient methods. The fall of Old Gis to Valyrian dragons foreshadowed how Aegon would later conquer Westeros, proving that aerial supremacy could overcome any ground-based defense. The Giscari defeat represented not just the fall of one empire, but the beginning of an age where dragons determined the fate of nations. The Rhoynish people, who lived along the great river Rhoyne in Essos, were among the few who successfully resisted Valyrian expansion for a time through their water magic. The Rhoynar practiced sorceries connected to their river, able to call floods and mists to bless their warriors with water's strength. When Valyria moved to conquer the Rhoyne Valley, the Rhoynar fought back with determination and their unique magic, achieving victories that surprised the Dragon Lords. For years, the conflict remained uncertain, with Rhoynish water wizards countering Valyrian fire in spectacular battles. The Rhoynar even managed to kill some dragons, pulling them from the sky with water spouts or drowning them in the river's depths. However, Valyria's resources proved too vast, their dragons too numerous. The Dragon Lords eventually gathered a massive force and destroyed the Rhoynish cities one by one, burning them so completely that the river itself was said to boil. The surviving Rhoynar, led by Princess Nymeria, fled across the sea to Dorne in Westeros, bringing 10,000 ships in an exodus that saved their people if not their homeland. The ruins along the Rhoyne still stand as testament to this war, broken cities slowly being reclaimed by the river and the jungle. The Rhoynish defeat demonstrated that even magic could not overcome dragons when applied with overwhelming force. Yet the Rhoynar survived as a people, their bloodline mixing with Dornish stock to create a culture that remembered water's power even in the desert. The war against the Rhoynar was one of Valyria's most difficult conquests, a reminder that the freehold's dominance, while vast, was not achieved without cost or struggle. The Valyrian religion, insofar as it can be reconstructed from fragmentary sources, seems to have focused on a diverse pantheon of gods, without the monotheism or dualism of later faiths. The Dragon Lords worshipped multiple deities associated with natural forces, with particular reverence for gods of fire and sky. Dragons themselves may have been considered divine or semi-divine, sacred creatures that bridged the mortal and supernatural realms. temples in Valyria would have been grand structures where priests conducted rituals involving fire, blood, and sacrifice to maintain cosmic balance and ensure the empire's prosperity. The Valyrians do not seem to have been particularly pious in the manner of later religions, viewing gods as powerful forces to be respected and appeased rather than moral authorities to be obeyed. Magic and religion were intertwined in Valyrian thought, with no clear distinction between the two realms. After the Doom, Valyrian religious practices largely faded, replaced by local faiths in the free cities. The Targaryens adopted some Westerosi religious customs while maintaining private devotions to their ancestral gods. Some scholars suggest that Valyrian arrogance toward the gods contributed to the Doom, that the Dragon Lords had become so powerful they forgot they were mortal. This interpretation fits with later religious teachings about the dangers of pride and the importance of humility before divine power. The truth of Valyrian religion remains elusive, another aspect of their civilization lost to fire and time. What prayers the Dragon Lords said before the Doom came, what gods they called upon as the flames consumed them, will never be known. Their temples lie beneath the smoking sea, their rituals forgotten, their gods silent or departed. The economy of Valyria at its height operated on a scale difficult for later ages to comprehend, with the trade flowing across the known world to feed the freehold's appetite for luxury and raw materials. Valyrian merchants sailed to Westeros for timber, to Sothorios for exotic goods, to the Jade Sea for spices and silk. The freehold's control of major trade routes made it fabulously wealthy, with gold flowing into Valyrian coffers from 100 different sources. The Empire minted coins bearing the sigils of the Dragon Lord families, currency accepted throughout Essos and beyond for its purity and reliability. Valyrian gold, silver, and copper coins remained in circulation long after the Doom, so well made that they retained their value across centuries. The sudden disruption of Valyrian trade networks when the Doom struck caused economic chaos across the known world, as routes were cut and trading partners disappeared overnight. Cities that had grown wealthy servicing Valyrian trade fell into poverty, while new trade patterns slowly emerged to fill the void. The free cities competed fiercely to control former Valyrian trade routes, with commercial rivalry often leading to military conflict during the Century of Blood. The economic legacy of Valyria shaped Essos profoundly, with some cities rising to prominence specifically because of their position on old trade routes. Even today, merchants speak of Valyrian gold as the standard of quality, and ancient coins from the freehold command premium prices from collectors. The economic sophistication of Valyria, its complex financial instruments and far-reaching trade networks, represented achievements that took centuries to rebuild after the Doom. The freehold's economic collapse was nearly as devastating as its physical destruction, impoverishing regions that had depended on Valyrian trade and leaving millions struggling to survive in a suddenly disrupted world. The system of governance in the Valyrian freehold, while dominated by the 40 Dragon Lord families, apparently included some form of assembly or council, where decisions affecting the empire were made collectively. This was not democracy in any modern sense, as only the Dragon Lord families had voices in governance, but it prevented any single family from achieving absolute dominance. The system created a balance of power that lasted for millennia, impressive in its stability given the violent potential of families who controlled dragons. Disputes between houses were resolved through political maneuvering, arranged marriages, and occasionally through dragon combat, but the system generally held together. The Targaryens, as a middle-ranking family, would have participated in this governance structure without dominating it, giving them experience in coalition building and compromise. After the Doom, no such unified system existed, and the free cities each developed their own forms of government. Volantis maintained something closest to the Valyrian model, with its triarchs elected from old blood families, while other cities adopted different systems entirely. The loss of Valyria's governmental structure, which had coordinated activities across a vast empire, contributed to the chaos that followed the Doom. No institution existed that could claim authority over the fractious free cities, no framework for resolving disputes except through war. The Valyrian system, for all its flaws and limitations, had provided stability and order across a vast territory for thousands of years. Its destruction meant not just the loss of a government, but the collapse of the entire framework that had organized political life across Essos. The struggle to create new systems of order occupied the free cities for generations, and some would argue they never fully succeeded in replacing what was lost. The Valyrian calendar system, which divided the year differently than the calendars used in Westeros, survived in modified form in the free cities and influenced timekeeping across Essos. The Valyrians apparently had sophisticated understanding of astronomy, tracking the movements of stars and planets with precision that allowed accurate, long-term calendars. They built observatories where scholars studied the heavens, seeking both practical knowledge for navigation and calendars, as well as mystical insight into fate and destiny. The Doom disrupted calendar keeping as it disrupted everything else, with the exact date of the catastrophe lost in the confusion. Different cities mark years from different events, creating confusion when comparing dates across regions. Some free cities count years from the Doom itself, treating it as the pivotal moment that ended one age and began another. Others maintain older systems inherited from Valyria or adopted from other cultures. This confusion extends to historical records, making it difficult to establish precise chronologies for events before or immediately after the Doom. Scholars attempting to reconstruct Valyrian history struggle with contradictory dates and uncertain timelines. The Valyrians themselves apparently kept detailed records, but most of these were destroyed. The few texts that survive often reference events without providing clear dates, assuming readers would understand the Valyrian calendar system that is now largely forgotten. This loss of chronological precision is frustrating for historians, creating gaps and uncertainties in their understanding of when specific events occurred. Time itself became uncertain after the Doom, as if the catastrophe had broken not just the empire but the very framework by which people measured history. The Valyrian calendar, which had ordered time for millennia, fragmented into multiple competing systems that reflected the political fragmentation of post-Doom Essos. The Valyrian practice of keeping detailed genealogies of both noble families and dragons created networks of kinship that bound the Dragon Lord houses together while also establishing hierarchies of prestige. Families with longer documented lineages held higher status, while newer houses worked to establish their ancient credentials through creative interpretation of genealogical records. Dragon lineages were tracked with equal care, with the ancestry of each dragon documented to understand its characteristics and capabilities. This obsessive record-keeping meant that Valyrians knew precisely which dragons were related, which bloodlines produced the largest or most powerful beasts, and which families had the longest unbroken history of dragon riding. The Targaryens maintained these practices after fleeing to Dragonstone, keeping careful records of both family and dragon ancestry. These genealogies allowed them to plan breeding programs for both humans and dragons, attempting to preserve or enhance desirable traits. The practice of brother-sister marriage fit into this genealogical obsession, as it kept bloodlines pure and documentable. After the Doom, these records became invaluable for establishing claims and precedents among survivors. Families with well-documented Valyrian ancestry held higher status in the Free Cities, particularly in Volantis, where old blood dominated politics. The Targaryens' genealogical records proved their status as one of the 40 Dragonlord families, lending legitimacy to their eventual conquest of Westeros. In a world where most people had little knowledge of their ancestry beyond a few generations, the Valyrian obsession with genealogy set them apart, creating a culture where identity was deeply tied to documented lineage. This focus on ancestry influenced Westeros after the Targaryen conquest, with noble houses becoming more concerned with lineage and legitimacy. The destruction of most Valyrian genealogical records in the Doom created opportunities for fraud, with some families claiming ancient Valyrian descent based on fabricated evidence. Yet, enough genuine records survived to make verification possible for those with access to proper archives, allowing scholars to separate authentic noble lines from pretenders. The military forces of Valyria, beyond the Dragon Lords themselves, remain somewhat obscure in surviving accounts, which focus understandably on dragons rather than conventional soldiers. However, the Freehold must have maintained substantial ground forces to garrison its vast territories and handle situations where deploying dragons would be excessive or impractical. These forces likely included both free citizens serving for pay or honor, and conscripted slaves trained for battle. The Valyrians apparently learned from peoples they conquered, adopting military techniques and technologies that proved effective. The famous Unsullied warriors, trained in the Giscari cities after those territories came under Valyrian control, may have served in freehold armies, or at least been influenced by Valyrian military thought. Valyrian soldiers would have been well equipped, with access to superior weapons and armor produced by the Freehold's advanced metallurgy. However, they likely never achieved the fame or effectiveness of the Dragon Lords themselves, existing in the shadow of aerial power. After the Doom, various free cities developed their own military traditions, with some like Volantis maintaining slave armies, while others like Pentos relied on mercenaries. The famed sellsword companies of Essos, such as the Golden Company, trace some of their traditions to Valyrian military practice. The systematic training of soldiers, the emphasis on discipline and coordination, and the use of professional armies rather than feudal levies all reflect Valyrian influence. Westeros, by contrast, maintained feudal military organization, with armies raised by lords from their subjects when needed. The Targaryen conquest introduced some Valyrian concepts to Westeros, but the feudal system persisted. The military legacy of Valyria, while less spectacular than its dragons, shaped warfare across Essos and influenced military thought for centuries after the Freehold's fall. The relationship between the Valyrian Freehold and the mysterious Shadowlands beyond Ashai remains one of history's intriguing questions, with fragmentary evidence suggesting contact and trade but little detail about the nature of that interaction. Ashai by the Shadow, that distant city of shadowbinders and dark magic, lay at the eastern edge of the known world, as far from Valyria as distance and culture could make it. Yet traders from both civilizations apparently met and exchanged goods, with Valyrian merchants seeking the exotic products of the Far East, while Ashai purchased Valyrian steel and other freehold manufactures. some texts hint at deeper connections, suggesting that Valyrian sorcerers studied with shadowbinders, or that magical knowledge flowed between the two centers of mystical learning. The dragons themselves may have originated in the Shadowlands according to some theories, though this remains pure speculation without supporting evidence. After the Doom, Asshai continued unchanged, that timeless city seemingly unaffected by events in distant Essos. The Shadowbinders of Asshai possess knowledge of the Doom, speaking of it as a warning about the dangers of magical hubris. But whether they have genuine insight or merely repeat common wisdom is unclear. The connection between Valyria and Asshai represents one of many aspects of the Freehold's history that remain frustratingly obscure, tantalizing hints without clear answers. The Shadowlands themselves remain mysterious, a place few visit and fewer leave, where night reigns eternal and magic runs strong. Whether Asshai influenced Valyria's development or vice versa, or whether the two magical civilizations developed independently and merely traded at a distance, cannot be determined from available evidence. The relationship between these two centers of ancient power remains one of history's unsolved mysteries, another question buried in time and distance. The Valyrian approach to education and scholarship created centers of learning that preserved and expanded knowledge across many fields, from natural philosophy to magic, from history to engineering. Young nobles of the Dragonlord families received comprehensive education befitting their status, learning not just dragon riding and warfare, but also literature, science, and sorcery. Slaves with particular aptitudes might receive training in specialized skills, creating a class of educated craftsmen and administrators who kept the empire functioning. Libraries in Valyria housed vast collections of texts covering every subject imaginable, representing thousands of years of accumulated knowledge. Scholars from across the known world apparently came to study in Valyria, drawn by the Freehold's reputation for learning and by access to knowledge unavailable elsewhere. This made Valyria not just a military and economic power, but also a cultural and intellectual center that influenced thought throughout the known world. The destruction of Valyrian libraries represented an intellectual catastrophe of staggering proportions, erasing knowledge that later ages struggled to rediscover or recreate. The few Valyrian texts that survived became treasured beyond measure, copied and recopied despite limited understanding of their content. The Maesters of the Citadel in Westeros possess some Valyrian texts in their library, studying them for insights into medicine, mathematics, and other practical subjects. However, texts dealing with magic and sorcery are viewed with suspicion, their dangerous knowledge carefully restricted. The Valyrian educational system, which had produced generations of learned scholars, did not survive the Doom in any organized form. The free cities developed their own educational traditions, but none matched the comprehensive, systematic approach of the Freehold. Volantis maintains the closest approximation, with schools where noble children learn High Valyrian and study history. But even this is pale compared to what existed before. The loss of Valyrian scholarship meant that later generations had to rediscover much that had been common knowledge, reinventing techniques and theories that Valyrian scholars had mastered and moved beyond. The intellectual regression caused by the Doom set civilization back by centuries in multiple fields, creating gaps in knowledge that persist even in the present day. The volcanic glass known as dragon glass or obsidian had special significance in Valyria beyond its practical uses, with the substance apparently connected to dragon magic in ways that are not fully understood. Dragon glass forms naturally when volcanic lava cools rapidly, and the 14 flames produced vast quantities of this black glass. The Valyrians used dragon glass for various purposes, from making sharp blades to creating decorative objects, but they also incorporated it into their magical workings somehow. Some scholars believe that dragon glass can hold or channel magical energies, making it valuable to sorcerers. The substance has the unusual property of being able to kill White Walkers, the ancient enemies in the far north of Westeros, though how the Valyrians knew this or whether they did is uncertain. After the Doom, dragon glass from Valyria became more difficult to obtain, though dragonstone still produces the substance due to its volcanic nature. The children of the forest, who inhabited Westeros before men, apparently knew secrets of dragon glass that they used to create the first White Walkers, suggesting the substance has properties beyond the merely physical. The connection between dragon glass, dragons, and magic remains one of many Valyrian mysteries, with later ages possessing the substance without fully understanding its potential. The Night's Watch in Westeros learned that dragon glass weapons could destroy White Walkers, giving ancient material new importance in the struggle against supernatural enemies. Whether the Valyrians knew of White Walkers and prepared dragon glass weapons specifically to combat them, or whether this property was discovered later, cannot be determined. The volcanic nature of both Valyria and Dragonstone meant abundant dragon glass supplies, but the Freehold's fall left later generations without easy access to this potentially crucial material. The full significance of dragon glass in Valyrian magic and society remains hidden, another secret lost when the sorcerers who understood such things perished in the flames. The Valyrian attitude toward death and the afterlife, insofar as it can be reconstructed, seems to have accepted mortality, while focusing on achieving greatness in life that would be remembered after death. The Dragon Lords did not apparently believe in bodily resurrection or reincarnation in the manner of some religions, but rather in living lives worthy of memory and song. This philosophy encouraged bold action and grand achievements, driving Valyrians to build monuments that would outlast them and perform deeds that would echo through history. The Doom's complete destruction of Valyria meant that even this form of immortality was largely denied to those who perished, as their monuments crumbled and their names were forgotten when all who remembered them died. The Targaryens maintained Valyrian funeral customs after relocating to Dragonstone, cremating their dead in the traditional manner. This practice reflected both practical concerns about disease and philosophical beliefs about returning the body to fire's cleansing embrace. When dragons were available, dead Targaryens of high rank were sometimes given to their dragons to cremate, an honor reserved for the most distinguished. After the Targaryen conquest of Westeros, this created tension with local customs, as Westerosi practiced burial rather than cremation. The Targaryens generally adapted to local practice for political reasons while maintaining traditional cremation for family members. The philosophy of achieving immortality through remembered deeds rather than through literal life after death influenced how Valyrians approached their existence, encouraging them to act boldly and build grandly. This may have contributed to the pride and hubris that some believe brought about the Doom, as Dragon Lords reached too far in their quest for legendary status. The Valyrian approach to death, focused on legacy rather than afterlife, created a culture oriented toward achievement and remembrance, where one's name and deeds mattered more than promises of paradise beyond the grave. The process by which someone bonded with a dragon in Valyrian society involved elements both mystical and practical, though the exact techniques died with the dragon lords who practiced them. The bond formed between dragon and rider was profound, creating a connection that lasted until one or the other died. Dragons bonded to a rider would not accept another while that rider lived, remaining loyal even across great distances. The initial bonding apparently occurred when dragons were young, with riders claiming them early and developing the relationship as both grew. This required courage, as even young dragons were dangerous and unpredictable. Valyrian dragon riders used commands in High Valyrian, with dragons responding to their bonded rider's voice more reliably than to others. The blood connection between dragon lords and their beasts went beyond simple training, suggesting magical elements in the bond that are no longer understood. The Targaryens preserved this knowledge after the Doom, successfully bonding with dragons across multiple generations. However, the process became less reliable as dragons weakened and eventually disappeared, with later Targaryen attempts to hatch eggs failing repeatedly. The bond between dragon and rider represented one of the fundamental mysteries of Valyrian power, a connection that gave dragon lords their tremendous military advantage. Without this bond, dragons were wild and dangerous, useful perhaps as weapons of terror but not as directed tactical forces. The secret of creating and maintaining the bond died with Valyria, leaving later ages to puzzle over how it was achieved. Daenerys Targaryen's success in bonding with her 3 dragons, accomplished through instinct and circumstance rather than formal training, suggests that some aspects of the bond are innate to those with the right bloodline. Yet even she lacks complete understanding of what she has achieved, operating on instinct where Valyrian dragon lords possessed systematic knowledge. The dragon bond remains one of many Valyrian secrets lost, but not entirely forgotten, existing now more as art than science, more as mystery than understood practice.